Hi, this is Eternal King here, bringing you another gaming video today. So I did want to talk a little bit about the Witness again today because I find the Witness does an excellent job of paralleling workflows that you find in an office. And I guess the whole idea of a world filled with nothing but puzzles is more or less identical to what you might find in an office depending on your current role. In terms of my own responsibilities, they are continuing to grow exponentially. I have kind of dropped some of the middle management that I've been doing recently in favor of more top-end, high-level work. So more specifically, I'm overseeing a branded like an integration at the moment, or basically an acquisition is what happens when you buy a company. An integration is what happens when you want to own a company. Is you have to essentially make a proper accounting of all of their resources. Those resources could be staff. Those resources could be the back end software part, so like the applications listed on the App Store. Those resources are their website, and then of course any sort of marketing mix or marketing portfolio they are currently employing needs to be fully consumed and potentially optimized or adopted as you see fit. So that's actually a massive task. Previously, at the company that I'm currently working at, we've never really had a comprehensive marketing portfolio or a marketing mix. We put in, a little bit of money here with one agency that basically just dumps the funds onto one platform, or we put in a little bit of money for another agency that dumps the funds onto another platform. But, we haven't really had what you would call a comprehensive marketing portfolio of, a sustained spend of a sizable amount across many different platforms and many different accounts and many different solutions. And I am currently overseeing that. It is hard for people who don't know anything about digital marketing, and to be honest, there is very few people at the company that I'm working at that currently do other than myself, to realize that this is essentially the equivalent of a massive investment portfolio. You are investing money to essentially get leads or get sales going that otherwise would not exist. So in the same way you invest in stock to essentially increase the amount of money that you're making just on a lump sum. It's the same thing. You're investing in the future. You're either doing it through a marketing portfolio or you're doing it through an investment portfolio. That is how the world is run these days. So that's a very big job, very massive job. And in addition to that, I am also more or less running stakeholder relations, trying to keep our current stakeholder happy and pleased. And that more or less brings us to the subject of this video, which is neurodivergence. So typically, your average person in an office can only really do one thing at a time. This is just fundamentally true. You can give them one workflow and you say, this is your workflow, this is the thing that you do. Do not essentially get outside of that box, and every day will look the same for you. You have people who sit in the same office doing the same thing for 3 years, but then you look back on it and you're like, what did you actually accomplish? Well, you accomplished whatever little tasks were associated with your little workflow. Very rarely will you say, wow, you had a comprehensive impact on the bottom line, or wow, you managed a large, sum of funds in a comprehensive investment or marketing portfolio. It happens. There are people who are smart enough to do these things. They do exist, especially in the world of finance, and in the world of marketing, and of course in the world of software in Silicon Valley. These are, some of them are slightly neurodivergent, and they are capable of doing a little bit more than nero-normatives. And then some of those people are perfectly normal, and they're just really good at their job or the one thing that they do. And the entire point of this, though, however, is that in an office today, there needs to be room for all types. You have your neurodivergent people who are capable of doing more work than everyone else on a larger scale than everyone else. And you need to be able to respect that they, see the world differently, think about the world differently, function differently. And then you have people who are exceptionally basic and will more or less spend their week talking and not acting. Because again, they can only manage the one workflow at a time. So that's normal. And there are basically different rules for different people in an office, right? If you're capable of doing more work than someone else, there is a 100% chance that you will be tasked with doing more work than everyone else because that's what you're capable of. That's just fundamentally true. Um, but again, it's important that you can do these things in a non-toxic environment where even slightly people who are slightly neurodivergent or slightly different than you can feel like they are being respected for their massive work contributions, essentially. And if it feels like they're not being respected, well, that's going to cause internal friction. It's going to cause internal conflict, and it's going to cause blowouts, which does happen in office settings at times. I just don't typically participate because I view myself as a consummate professional who doesn't engage in those types of discussions and fights. Our finance team is very similar. I have not seen the finance team blow out at all because, again, you don't really get to that level and act like a child. You just don't do that. So, what would be a good example of multiple workflows on the puzzle equivalent, right? So say this is your standard workflow here and you go, okay, all right, I understand. This is the job that I do. I connect the dots. This is my work contribution right here. And I'm figuring out this task. I'm figuring out this task. And boom, done. And all right, completed, right? And like that's the one task I will do today. Or even better example might be to say that a workflow is essentially completing all 6 of these puzzles in a day, right? So you're pretty good at your job. You've gotten past the learning phase. You understand how to connect the dots. So you're just doing this now, right? Like this is my job. This is what I do. Um, and so yeah, you're gonna have some wrong attempts. You're gonna mess up a little bit, but for the most part, you're gonna understand the best ways to complete your work that is non-disruptive for everyone involved. And done, right? And so you're like, okay, I answered one email, I completed one Word document, now I move on to the next one. All right, let's do that again, right? And so this is your workflow now. This is your workflow for the day, is that you are completing all 6 of these puzzles in order to complete the fundamental task. So that's a workflow. What it means to manage multiple workflows, or for example, a portfolio or a marketing mix, as the case may be, is that you would essentially have multiple puzzles to oversee at the same time that all have different solutions. This is just fundamentally how having multiple workflows, that's how it goes, is you have multiple ongoing puzzle combinations that you are overseeing at any given point in time. Now you can only act on one of those things at a time, but due to digital marketing tools and spends and automations and accounts and all these things, is that once you get all the ducks in a row, you get everything lined up, there is a certain level of automation to it that means that you can be wider on tasks than other people. Again, I really like my job as a digital marketer. I like that it's constantly new things that I am constantly learning. The only thing that stresses me out, the only thing that actually makes me, again, I have a bit of a cold this weekend. The only thing that really gets me is the interpersonal conflict angle, where it's like now it's not about work anymore. It's not about you complaining about your workflow, and it's not about the tasks that you've been given, and it's not about you doing those tasks or managing those workflows or multiple workflows. Really, it's just about you kind of complaining about the people that you work with. And the amount of time that you spend complaining about work and your co-workers means that you are fundamentally not completing your workflows for the day. You are not completing those 6 puzzles in order to get the laser to shine at the mountain. Like you're not doing it. There's really no other black and white way to say it, where the more time that you spend complaining about tasks, the more time you spend complaining about your coworkers, the more time you spend fighting with your coworkers, the less productive you are. I think that's like something we can all fundamentally agree on, that's a bad idea. But people do. It is an exceptionally neuronormative thing to do, which is to posture, which is to spend more time communicating than acting. It is exceptionally normal to essentially back channel and back chatter around your coworkers. It is exceptionally normal to try to essentially assassinate This happens very commonly. In high pressure situations, you have Julius Caesar getting stabbed multiple times by his Senate. Well, why did they do that? Well, because they were in a high stress, high pressure situation with someone overseeing them that they didn't like. So the knives are there if you're a neuronormative, collective of individuals, bringing out your worst collective attributes. That is a neuronormative thing to do, which is, if the stress is high enough, you commit murder. In a workplace, they say that killing is basically means getting somebody fired, right? You attempt to murder them by getting them to lose their job. That is a neuronormative thing to do. Now, if you are a neurodivergent, you would never really think to do that, because you are 100% focused on the tasks, on the workflows, and on the solutions to the puzzles. You would never be like, okay, well, I really want to get rid of these 3 people from the company because then my day will be less stressful. And it's like, well, your day would also be less stressful if you ignored those 3 people and just did your job. That would be the neurodivergent way of looking at it. It's just that you